I want all of you to think at least one event in your life where you have felt some sort of setback. Maybe you failed in your personal life. You got some medical trauma. You lost someone very dear to you. The most important relationship in your life got broken. You went through some physical disability, just like me. Perhaps you got losses in your business. Perhaps you lost your job you loved so much. You invested so badly that you got yourself into debt. Your business went nowhere despite all your hard work, and you lost an important deal. Remember any such setback, crisis, adversity, the trauma that has taken a toll on you emotionally, personally, financially, or professionally? Raise your hands if you have experienced it at least once in your life. Yeah. Adversities are inevitable. They can happen to anyone, and it can be a real struggle for many to overcome them. Sometimes it is just one time of event, and sometimes it leaves permanent mark on us for life. Whether it is a crisis or adversity, short-term or permanent, all bring one thing to you. And that one thing I call as wall. Wall of limitations that seems to restrict your movement, seems to contain you, seems to put you in a virtual jail, seems like no escape. The wall that restricts you from moving forward. I learned a lesson very hard way that we keep struggling with the walls. So much so that we fail to see beyond the walls. You heard the name Darwin. He was an evolution scientist. He said that the human beings are fighters by nature. Our first instinct is to fight right away. And the warrior inside us gets so busy struggling with that wall and try to break it. We keep saying to ourselves, I must keep trying. I can't fail. I can't run away. I can't quit. Ever happened to anyone? You said to yourself many times, right? But you forget a key lesson that centuries of history and civilization has taught us. No one has ever won a war without knowing the opponent well enough. All you do is fighting, then how would you win over it without understanding your enemy? Do you take enough time to understand what we are up against? I stand before you as an individual who is now a global authority on speed in learning and performance. I have earned 2 doctorates. I have earned over 100 international credentials, some of world's highest certifications. I have written 20 books, and I am a performance scientist as well as a learning leader for a Fortune 500 company. And that's just a trailer of my achievements. Things were not same way with me always, okay? I had a fair share of losses, trauma, adversities, probably far worse than anyone can think. I contracted polio virus, which is this planet's deadliest virus, when I was just 6 months old. Medically, there was no cure. It came with other complications like a deformed legs, deformed spine, and muscular challenges. It led me to permanent paralysis of one leg. I lost my ability to walk, even before I could learn to walk. So I thought I was born like that. So as of now, I am permanently disabled for life. I survived and got to live. But that was not the end of it, Sometimes surviving death doesn't mean that life is going to be less terrifying. What was waiting for me next were beginning of challenges. The first 15 years of my childhood have been no less than a Homo sapien evolution. Back then in childhood, all I could do was crawl on the floor or hold something to drag myself around. When I grew up a little bit, then I had to wear those heavy prosthetics. I'm not sure you have seen it, but it has braces made up of steel rods. It has a few leather straps and heavy boots at the bottom just to keep my leg in place. So that weighed about, I think, more than my own weight as a kid. So in my later years, I learned to walk with crutches, which is my current mode of walking. I walk with this crutch now. Otherwise, I was probably meant to be a wheelchair-ridden for life. With all those conditions, prosthetic, playing with other healthy kids was impossible. That also meant I had no friend either. I was probably at risk of never ever going to get any education. And back in remote areas of India, schools were not any near. I'm talking about some 40 years ago. Things were not accessible back then. So in my teenager years, my parents were worried that my condition would prevent me from going to college. There were times that our relatives had concern. What if I couldn't make enough livelihood for myself or even get married? Last one was very scary at that age. I can pretty much say that the world around me, my friends, neighbors, even parents sometimes let me constantly feel unwanted and inferior through series of bullying or rejection experiences. Eventually, I managed to go to school, which started a new chapter. I started feeling bad when I couldn't match pace with my classmates, those who used to go to school with me. I was the kind of always left behind, trying to drag my caliper on my leg back home. It used to take me several hours to reach back home of my own. I felt the impossible wall ahead of me, a solid wall of disability, limitation, possibly preventing me from getting education or any means of earning. And I saw no way I could break that wall. Same way, you all have walls of loss, crisis, trauma, adversity, setback, limitations, don't you? Back then, every new day I thought I would overcome it. My difficulties continue to rise emotionally and physically. I tried hard, but there was hardly anything I could do about going like normal kids. I watched kids playing all day long from my room window while I was glued to my chair. More I watched, the more I felt bad. Why? Because I was trying to break the wrong wall. If I had continued on that path, I would have never been able to break that wall. I got to tell you, physical disability is nothing. Most of us have limiting beliefs, mindset, perceived limitation that we feel that it is the end of the world. How many of you thought at least once in your life that I'm not good enough? Almost all of you, right? Those perceived limiting beliefs are also disabilities because it does not let you walk forward, just like me. So you have to first understand what's the nature of your wall is. Is it even real or just made up in your head? And then you need to give a hard look. Do you really need to break it? Perhaps you don't need to break it. Perhaps you should learn to live with it. If your wall is not limiting you anyhow, why invest your time, energy, resources, and emotion trying to break it? Now, the question in your mind would be, how I became so resilient? How did I overcome such impossible condition? How did I get over the setbacks? I would say only one word: windows. If we shift our focus to a larger picture instead of focusing too narrowly on the walls alone, we will see that most walls do have windows too, isn't it? I think our struggles become miserable only when we fail to spot such windows of opportunities that are open right in front of us. Have you thought about where your windows are? No matter how difficult the situation is, I believe there are always some leverages available to every one of us. One day, I realized while being glued to the chair, I had plenty of distraction-free time, social interaction-free time. Nobody was disturbing me. I didn't have those spoiler friends. Back then, I had the time at my disposal while other kids didn't have that much time. So I saw that as my edge. It gave me unobstructed time to immerse myself in the world of learning. So I started reading. Learning. That was my best bet since it literally tied me to the chair and didn't demand much mobility. So I immersed myself in reading books in my early years. I read anything I could put my hand on. That time I spent reading all sorts of books, and some of the books I read ahead of my age. I remember first book I ever read was Dale Carnegie's, while other kids were reading comics at that time. So soon I mastered poetry, chemistry, astronomy, physics, science, and any other book I could afford to buy. It was a sort of jest at first to prove myself that I'm better than others. I wanted to prove that I can learn better and faster. That indeed put me in the front row in the school or in my circle. Soon I started loving the learning. I explored all sides of it. It was ironic that ultimately my disadvantage of being immobile turned out to be my advantage. It became the reason for me to focus and read for many hours without getting distracted. The just to be the fast is something propelled me to be passionate about learning new things better and quicker. At that time, I saw it as my differentiator. It helped me get noticed and stay ahead of the healthy kids around my age. My immobility turned out to be sort of gift all of a sudden. So if we look, we might find windows. And those are the windows of opportunities, windows of leverages, windows that would allow you to see beyond the walls. My leverages back then did not stop at reading books only. I had healthy hands, as you see, just like other kids. So I used them to try painting, sketching, designing, and other creative arts, while other kids were busy playing cricket with their hands. So then I had opportunity to engage in daydreaming, vivid imaginations, and creative thinking, which other kids don't have that luxury. So that soon developed me into a writer. I wrote poetry, stories, dramas, and magazine articles, while other kids were struggling to write essays. The point here is that I began to see so many windows of opportunities, leverages, and advantages. I leveraged everything my limitation offered to me. Immobility, that I was cursing so badly, seemed like my thing now. A simple thought changed the course of my life. If I can't walk, what else could I do? That question, that simple question, opened up my world of leverages most people will ignore. Despite my disability, I became an engineer at the age of 21, and a year later, I became a scientist. This was something I thought about in my 9th grade. If you see, my real wall of disability did not come my way. I had to locate the windows through those walls to reach where I wanted to reach. Now, because all of those leverages, I am the recognized learning specialist and learning leader in the world. Moving the focus from limitation to leverages, that simple shift in thought process can save us from a war with our walls. Forget all those motivational slogans, what you hear, break the boundaries that are holding you back, break your wall, break the boundaries. Heard all those kind of things? I believe we don't have to even break the walls or boundaries sometime. When we start looking at the things our adversity brings with it, we will begin to spark new opportunity in them. We don't have to be a scientist to support all those opportunities. Windows could be right through them. That would allow us to see the world on the other side. We just have to identify those windows of opportunities. It can bring breakthroughs to our life. Les Brown, the legend in motivation, he says, life has no limitations except the ones you make. If you really want to recover out of your financial, personal, and professional setback and want to become resilient, then the big question to ponder is, are you ready to look beyond your walls and find your windows? Thank you.